I would say that cutting down trees is actually healthy to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
It's called felling trees. To some extent, it can be healthy, and to some extent, obviously, you can overdo it.
Yeah.
Like the elm tree of the U.S., we overplanted, and then because we overplanted, it had a specific fungus come out.
Mm-hmm.
So now the American elm tree is only limited to the Northeast.
Interesting.
And only in certain parts of the Northeast can it actually survive still.
So speaking of planting and surviving, what a great segue.
Sweet segue.
For church membership. I in my notes, I have it titled Church Membership. What is it?
What is it?
And sometimes when you read something on a paper, or like maybe you read a book and you don't know what the author sounds like, or like what their cadence might be, and so you kind of read this idea of how they sound, and then you go listen to them and you're like, oh, that sounds so different than what I was expecting. Anytime I read a question in this kind of form, I always think, like, in that weird shrilly tone of voice, like, what is it?
What is it?
So
like that.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk today about church membership and what it is, maybe what it is not, if we dare tackle that as well. But I know that we get a lot of questions about why church membership is even a thing. Can't I just show up for services and get fed the same message?
Yeah.
Kind of, we've behind the scenes maybe talked about this battle of, are we a consumer Christian as opposed to an active and productive one? Contributing Christian maybe is a good C.
A little Christianese there. We'll just keep the C thing going.
Yeah. But I've got three main questions and then some other questions to kind of interlace that I think all of us at some stage or point in our lives has asked or wondered.
Yeah. I could just jumped in there. We didn't even do like, hi, connecting the dots.
Oh, that might be helpful.
It's okay. We're already here.
Yeah. Let's do it like as a 5-minute mark thing.
Okay.
5
minutes.
It's us. I'm Minister Tim.
I'm Pastor Jared.
Yeah.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Don't watch that movie. Terrible movie. Anyway.
But welcome to Connect the Dots, and we're going to talk about church membership today.
That's right. So, when we talk about church membership, Tim, as somebody who works with teenagers, mostly teenagers anyway, I should say, do you think this conversation matters to them?
No.
I know you're going to pose most of the questions today, but I generally was thinking about this. Do you think that teenagers or even college students think about this?
That's a good question. I would say, do they think about it? Probably not.
Okay.
Do they desire it? That depends,
I guess.
And what I mean by desire, because I know that some students who are very active and involved very much desire to see their friends come to church, and they want to be involved in the church. They help with serving, like with the babies especially. So, and so I would say a lot of teenagers have the right ideas in terms of like attendance and activity, and even within a lesson itself, being involved in question and answer kind of stuff. Other students, I would say, and I'm speaking broadly, but I would say certainly membership in a church is more like a death sentence almost, where they're like, I've been dragged. I'm being dragged to church. I don't want to be here. My mom or dad is making me, or family member.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that's a lack of teaching or guidance by leadership?
In how it pertains to the students in maybe college?
Yeah.
I would say certainly in a home level.
Okay.
We
And by home, do you mean like church home, or home as in like their individual house?
Everything starts with their individual house, I would say.
Yeah.
And not that there's such thing as a perfect family, but
yeah, absolutely.
You know, when a family cultivates a love for the local church and includes the kids in that, not just showing them as the parents how to do that, but including them into that and helping them see why this is a good thing for them as well, and how they can grow into that as life goes on. I think that's the most immediately impactful thing, and I think you can see that where if this kid, here I'll give an example, not of a certain student or nothing like that, but I have a lot of students who are in houses that very well churched. I've got students in houses that their parents don't go to church, you know, but they still come and find a way. So the question might be, okay, what about those peculiar situations? And I don't know off the top of my head. Besides just praise God, that's awesome.
A lot of times it's friends. Now I'm thinking of one family in particular. In our specific context, I've gotten to know the kids. I've met the dad, I think, twice. Now how they showed up, I think the dad, though he does not go to church, just found us on the internet. And dropped his kids off one day. If I remember correctly, right?
No, you're right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thought to not to deal with, but to wrestle. Like, why would a parent in that instance? And I assume it's because most people just assume, even in our context today, just assume the church is safe. And it's, in a sense, babysitters that teach them at least somewhat good morals at the worst. At the lowest positive view, it would be that, you know, of, oh, it's a safe place I can leave my kids at, hopefully, and they'll take care of them for a little bit. So I can go have a date night with the wife or something. That's true. You
know, so it could, and this could be this is a whole other episode.
I know, we're getting into something deep here.
But that also begs the question for either non-members or members alike, what is the purpose of the church? Which
that is an excellent question.
And so I think we'll tackle aspects of that with some of these questions pertaining to you, the member.
So get ready. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. So, Jared, when we talk about church membership, member might be a loaded word. Not even in a negative way, but
people have the understanding of it. And what that means.
What do we mean when we say member?
So I'm going to ask you a real quick question.
Okay.
Though. How often was church membership talked about growing up at church? And we grew up in the same church, so I'm just curious if you can think back.
This is a hard one for me to answer because I definitely didn't pay attention with my ears in big service. As a kid in middle school and most of high school. But I was aware of church membership, in part because my mother was on staff at one point. But also we had a big wall of pictures of all the church members.
See, I don't remember that.
I don't remember where. I couldn't tell you where it is.
I don't remember.
It might be what is that effect people have where they'll misremember Berenstein Bears being spelled Berenstein. You know what I'm talking about? It might be like this completely fake thing. I just somehow remember
it.
But I remember there being a wall of that somewhere.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you. I was trying to think about this in our prep for this episode. Just thinking about growing up and how we handled it. And my first being on staff job was at our home church where we grew up at. And I even have struggled to either remember, that's what I'm saying, I either struggle to remember or I generally do not know the process or purpose of being a member at that particular church more than someone coming to the front saying, hey, we want to join. And the pastor at that church would call the church they came from if we knew of it, if they had come from another church, and say, hey, this person is joining congregation, and that is my deepest memory and recollection of. Let's see, I was there for 17 years, I guess.
Right.
Like I said, most of my formal memories and things that are there, and I don't remember it going further than church membership is important, which I'm curious for most people watching this, if that is your same experience where the church itself just said, hey, this is important with no purpose or explanation or anything like that. And so we talk about church membership. What we mean is some people may say partnership or may use some sort of language in that realm, basically saying the uniting of somebody to a group of people. And basically, church membership is you are saying, I am committing myself to this local gathering of Christians, not in battle or competition or against another local body.
Right.
It's just, this is local body I'm going to invest in and be invested back into. And so basically just saying, I come to serve, come to help. I submit myself to the leadership. I know that's a sensitive topic in there. The aspect of I'm allowing you to hold me accountable and me to hold you accountable, right? Even as leaders, we need to be held accountable. But joining a church says, hey, I'm saying, hey, leaders, I want you to hold me accountable as well. That's a big one. And coming to serve, to use my gifts to disciple and be discipled. So membership in a biblical sense, and I think this is something that we even at Connect are still trying to define as we've moved through the years. What does that look like? And it's a lot of involvement. Now, not like the 1990s or the 80s where you were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday evening, morning prayers, Wednesday night for all the kids stuff. It's not the fact of you have to be here every time the doors are open. And I think more and more churches have kind of gone away from that. But it's the aspect of you actually being invested in that local body, singular. Not that you can't be invested in some other bodies as well, but if you're trying to serve two different local congregations, at some point you're going to have to choose what that is. And so we always encourage people, and I think there's a biblical argument to be made there, to serve where you are and not be so scattered that you can't ever get further than, an inch deep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A question I might have, or I think a lot of us might have within that, because you're talking about like the local body.
Yeah.
But I've heard, and I've probably at some point even said, well, regardless of where I am physically and locally, why can't I just participate in the universal body? Yeah. Of the church.
The Catholic, big C, not Roman Catholic, because Catholic means universal church.
It would be little c.
Little c. Oh, I switched them. My bad. Delete that. I'm just kidding.
Apostles' Creed, the Holy Catholic Church, little c.
Little c. Sorry. Got those backwards.
No, you're good. You're good.
Need more coffee. I think the difficulty is... Yes, when Christine and I go on vacation, we still gather with saints on Sundays. We don't avoid going to church when I'm off.
Right.
Even if we take a Sunday off here in DFW at home and we don't go anywhere, we still join with the saints in another area. Sometimes we still may come to Connect. We tend not to, just because, and you know this, when you show up here, even if you're not working and you tell everybody that you're off, you just go into mode and you start going.
Yeah.
And so, yes, because we are a part of the universal Christian church, just for clarification there, the universal church. But I'm not going to spread myself so thin to think that I can be the Apostle Paul and invest in everywhere. Which, honestly, because people will use that argument when this conversation comes up, like, I can just go serve anywhere I want, whenever I want. But there's a level of trust there that has to be taken into consideration. And there has to be a level of love and knowledge and relationship. And so you can't just jump in to any part of the church and go, boom, I'm a shepherd.
Right.
Now, obviously, there's going to be some instances where you just walk in and be like, oh, well, yeah, I can help y'all do this thing. Not a big deal. Like I can set a table at any church I go to. No one's going to say no to somebody moving a table. But if you're like, I need someone to go help one of our older saints who is sick and possibly could be dying, they're not going to send somebody they don't know.
Right.
That would be a horrible idea. So.
And on the flip side of that, I would also say I think a lot of us have the temptation, like if we've been in that situation of saying, well, I'm not needed in the local church, I'm needed in the universal church. I think we can often say that and really just mean, I don't want to go to church.
Yeah.
Me and Jesus have our own personal thing going.
Yes.
And whether scripture is even involved in that thought at all.
Yeah.
Especially post-COVID. I think we've seen a lot of that happen with online church options. And I guess that goes into another question I have along those lines is, can't we accomplish the same things digitally through online church as church members? Like let's say I only go to church online, but I go to the same church online.
Yeah.
And I know even within saying that go to,
it's still
what does that mean?
Yeah.
But am I still benefiting from that, or is the church benefiting from me watching that? Why can't I just keep doing that?
Yeah, there's some caveats there. Obviously, someone who's very sick or bedridden, or we had a older couple where one of them has been coming to church, I don't know, I guess about a year and a half back in person, and the spouse had just returned to in-person gathering. Gosh, I think this summer. It's just health related issues and things of that nature. And so there's this difference of, if you have a real health related issue that keeps you from coming out, well, that is somewhat out of your control.
Right.
But will you get the full experience of gathering with the saints if you only do it online? Absolutely not. There are just certain things, both in relational and in knowledge and emotional, which is something to be said. And I think Tim and I are both fairly conservative people, and so people just automatically assume Baptist background, they're not emotional driven at all. We're the Christian version of Spock.
Right.
But there is an aspect of the emotional excitement and feel of the local body. Because there's some Sundays we'll walk off stage and we go, man, we just know like there is this spiritual battle raging within the local body. And there's times where we just feel like, man, the spirit is here, and like you can't catch that from watching it online. Like you can't catch that from Facebook Live or YouTube.
I would say, going back to Genesis 1-3, we weren't created to be alone.
Yeah.
And to put some actual scripture to it, John shows us even by example that meeting together face to face in whatever it is that we're discussing or going through, it completes our joy. 2 John 12. In the body, the local body, not just the universal Christian body, but the local active church body, when it coordinates together, we're meant to be a part of that and belong to that. And Hebrews 10, 24 through 25 kind of outline that of, hey, don't neglect the gathering. It's not just so that we can have a name on a list and keep you accountable to that. That's really not the point at all. It's no, we, like you said, we are completing each other's joy in Christ.
And Christ himself spent his whole ministry with people, right? Because I think that goes into a deeper part of this when people go, why can't I just do Jesus all by myself. I know that's not good English, but the reality when a lot of people go, I just need to read my Bible and be a good person. I don't need a group of people to do so.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You don't, but Jesus's model himself was doing it with other people.
Absolutely.
And Paul, as a missionary, right? He was everything to everybody. He went to places, but he would stay there for months and or years, establishing a congregation of local Christians that continued to grow together and were dependent on one another. And he never ever said, hey, now you go by yourself and just hang out.
Yeah.
But it was always go gather with the saints and meet one another's needs. Bear one another's burdens. Mm-hmm. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And so the idea of you can follow Jesus by yourself is misleading.
Yeah.
Because again, to some extent, yes, you can. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I am saying that there's a difference between you living in America
mm-hmm.
and then you being in the Middle East,
right?
And
where it's illegal,
and you are the only Christian you know of,
right?
Those are two very different things,
and we can't make that exception in those specific circumstances, or even ones we talked about a second ago about, like actual sickness preventing from a physical movement.
Yeah,
we can't make those exceptions the standard rule.
Yeah,
for every individual.
Yeah, because even in the sense of those who are sick, part of the responsibility of the local congregation is to invest in that sick person still.
Absolutely.
So therefore, there is an attempt there to not isolate them, but even in their perceived isolation, there is still community.
Right. What is it in 1 Timothy? Is it 4 or 5 where Paul's instructing Timothy to go visit the poor, the widows? I'm sure the sick would fall right under that principle.
Yeah. And we luckily have FaceTime and phone calls.
Absolutely. So let's take a brief intermission for 5 seconds for y'all. And I'm going to come back with maybe 2.5 more questions regarding
2.5 questions.
Can't I just go to church without the commitment of being a member? Right? Because that's a good question.
Yes.
And then also resources.
Yep.
Books, thoughts.
Yep.
So hold tight and we'll be right back. All right. Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed.
We're back.
Hope you enjoyed that 5 seconds of whatever I filled that time with in editing.
Yeah.
My immediate thought is elevator music. But I don't know.
I'll just send you a video of Sadie, who's my dog, and you just have elevator music, and she runs around her tail.
That's a great idea.
That'd be really funny.
I'd do that.
Anyway,
so big question: can't I just go to church physically? Go to the local body without the commitment of being a member?
Yes. Of course, yes. The difficulty in that is why.
Okay, like why?
Like why would you go to church to just
show up?
Yeah.
This might be a stretch, but I think this is a very common American thing.
Okay.
In the sense of Americans are very much taught about self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Oh, well,
committing only to yourself and your immediate family, if that even more. I mean, we've seen divorce numbers, but basically the emphasis is be true to yourself. Don't be shackled by anything. Right? So I think a lot of people, whether it's because of previous bad experience with church membership, or just that identity of
Americans really struggle with identity and establishing roots.
Yes.
Though most Americans still tie their identity to family, which is really interesting.
Oh yeah.
To think about those dichotomies. Anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, we're created for it.
Yeah.
But as far as like having the actual truth to recognize that is different.
Yeah.
But I think that's a factor to consider with why might we not want to commit despite still going?
I think there's just this, you don't want to open yourself to pain. And I genuinely mean that because a lot of people stop being involved in the local church because of church hurt, is what we call it. We call it church hurt, or somebody got burned, or somebody said the wrong thing, because the expectations is that the church is perfect or the place to heal. And the reality is, though we attempt to, we serve a perfect God as imperfect people, and we are here to help people, we will fail. Like, that's just part of human nature. It's a part of just learning and growing as a individual, is that sometimes we are going to fail, and it's easier, not better. Let me say that. It is easier to just do the bare minimum in the sense of just showing up to church and saying, hey, I'm a part of this congregation, though I don't do anything in it, than it would be to open yourself up to the possibility to get hurt.
Right.
Which is why we struggle with, as a whole culture, not even just Christianity or religious culture, but as a American culture, we struggle with relationships, putting down roots, and commitment.
No, absolutely. And I think what we end up doing is, and again, speaking broadly here, we might make the mental effort to not root ourselves in something, but then we accidentally always will.
Yeah.
In whatever subculture or community you might see yourself affiliated with, whether that's sports or more controversial things than that.
And I think you bring up sports is a very interesting point with all this. Because, one, I know somebody out there is going to say, oh, this is a millennial and Gen Z problem. We as, boomers or Gen Ed?
Yeah, Gen X.
Gen X, okay.
Yeah.
Gen X, who's older than me, will say, well, we grew up going to church every time the door was open. But how many people were actually involved?
Right.
And I'm not saying, oh, you didn't show up. People did show up.
Yeah.
But involved and engaged, growing in knowledge, not just doing things because that's what you did. Because I always go back to, where did millennials and Gen Zers learn these bad habits from?
Right.
Gen X and boomers. And I'm not throwing all the blame on them, because everyone's individuals. Everyone has individual responsibility. But when my parents, and I guess our parents are the same age, when our parents started letting things like sports or band concerts, or dare I even say homework, get in the way of gathering with other Christians, well, then we started seeing it becoming less and less important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a difference. Like, I had some friends, their parents would ground them from church, which I think is a little odd. But I understand they're coming from, though I disagree with it.
Right.
Personally. And, but when you're like, oh, you're tired? Oh, you have a lot of homework? You have 6 other days to do it? Let's just skip church today.
Right.
So you can do it. You're like, well, at some point, that kid's going to go, why do I need to go to church? Obviously, if I'm just tired, my parents don't go. Or if I said I was busy and they went, oh, okay, you don't have to go.
Yeah. So
it's really not that important. Because you say, I'm too busy to go to school, or I'm too busy to go to work, everyone's going to look at you and go, that's a horrible idea. You still have to go to school. You still have to go to work.
Right. And I think using examples like, I'm too tired, I've got homework or something. And we're thinking students of college and under for this example.
One thing about adults, even in the too tired aspect. Yeah.
Too tired. I think we can objectively agree tiredness is a temporary thing, but it's a very, very, very low bar.
Yeah.
Because we know if, like, let's say there's a friend gathering.
Yeah.
Or you haven't seen a friend in a long time, and they bail on you and say, I'm just tired, man. Your reaction is going to be disappointed.
Very, very hurt.
And
you might start questioning, like, maybe are we really that deep of friends? I don't know.
Yeah. And so my challenge for that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Is if that is the bar that we say, okay, well, if I am tired XYZ,
Yeah.
Therefore I cannot go to church.
Yeah.
We're saying that has a more, that is more, what's it called? We put a premium on that.
Yeah.
Over church membership. So church is not as premium and desirable as meeting those needs.
Yeah. In our specific context, I'm over our life groups here at Connect, and I attend a life group I don't lead, and no one's ever asked me why.
Why?
And the reason is because I want to show I'm also putting in that effort too.
Yeah.
So I lead another life group. I've led 2 life groups at a time, and still attended this third life group as an attender. I don't teach. I don't talk a ton just because of my position at the church. It kind of oddly sometimes puts weird pressure and things of that nature. So I do my best not to talk a whole lot at those specific times, which is hard because I also need that friendship and need that relationship and that care.
Yeah.
But I want to practice what I preach and that I show value of. And so I purposely don't teach a life group. And Christina and I do our best to make the effort. Now we have small kids, and sometimes we don't go because we have small kids. Or, life comes up, which is normal. Like there's a difference between you miss occasionally and you just don't go. But we put the effort in to go to a life group that we don't lead, that we are there to be, in a sense, fed and not to feed.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard. And I want people to know that serving the local body is hard because of time, relationships, this and that. But it is so, so valuable and important. And, and I can throw out, it's a command because it is a biblical command. But understanding the point of it is so that you don't have to carry the weight all yourself, and that you have people to hold you accountable to be dependent on. How glorifying it is for God to place things within the church itself for you to practice being like Jesus. Like for him to go, hey, you need to be like me. So here are some easy like softballs.
Yeah.
For you to just do it on your normal basis. Low effort.
Right.
They're just naturally part of what we do as followers of Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to put another biblical point to, okay, go into church versus being involved as a member in a church. Biblically speaking, we are described as sheep in need of shepherding.
Yeah.
And we're in a world that Scripture says is filled with wolves in sheep's clothing. If I want to pretend that me as really stupid sheep, because that's what sheep are, then I can do this on my own and shepherd myself as a single unit, apart from a flock, under a proper shepherd's care, then I'm going to fall victim to so many wolves.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself in those I'm responsible for if I'm a father.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm putting them in harm's way.
Yeah. And what's funny is if a lamb goes off on its own, if a sheep goes off on its own, sheep are dumb enough to follow that dumb sheep.
Yeah.
So whether you think, oh, I'm not affecting anybody at all, if you are or not, the reality is you're going to affect somebody that's around you in close proximity of you, because sheep will follow other sheep if no one else is saying anything.
Absolutely. To put a broader point to that as well, our sin does not just affect us.
That's right.
It affects others. I like to point to David and Bathsheba as an example. That affected so many people and generations. Because of one big slip up and the concurrent issues that went with that. So one of the biggest steals of being a dumb sheep is recognizing, like what you just said. We affect each other. Whether we recognize it or not doesn't change the truth of the matter.
Which is a good thing to recognize and realize, because it makes you think, or hopefully Hopefully it does. I know it doesn't always, but hopefully it'll make us pause when we make certain decisions and have certain conversations to think what I'm about to do or what I'm about to say will not just affect me, but also, these other people, whoever or how many other people it may or may not affect.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important to be involved, because we carry each other's burdens. We exhort, which means essentially to encourage each other. We point each other back to something far greater than ourselves and each other even. That's Christ as the example. We hold each other accountable. We are patient towards each other. We, 1 Corinthians 13, we show that kind of love described there to each other. We show grace to each other when we fail. And not that churches always practice that perfectly at all.
Yeah.
Church is not a perfect place. It is a place of sick,
broken
sinners, broken people. Yeah. And so being involved in that is crucial for your own spiritual growth as well.
Yeah. And I know you're thinking, what about bad leaders? That's another topic for another day, is leadership. And who knows? We might have some fun with that one day.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that we want to take away is you and I, as individuals, need to be involved in a local gathering of fellow Christians. And there's just no way around it.
Yeah.
To be a follower of Christ is to love the bride of Christ, which is the church. And that is so important. And it's not perfect. It's not cute. It's often quite messy. But there's nothing greater joy when you see the body come together. And you missed it when our first attempt of recording this episode, I stood up because I was so fiery that day. Who knows? Maybe that Jared will come back out here on another episode.
Oh, yeah.
So, but if you're looking for a good short book, this is called Church Membership. It's very, very tiny. It's by an author that I absolutely love. It is 100 and reading wise, 136 pages, 135 pages. And it's really about half a page to your normal book, right? So in consideration, can I see that book real quick? Just because you have it. So this is a normal size book, and this is this book.
Tiny.
So it is quite a short read. Sorry. Thank you, though.
No, you're good. No, that's a great resource. And 9 Marks has a lot of great resources on all sorts of different topics in that similar size and format.
9 Marks is the company. You can find it on Amazon, and I guess Tim could put a little link to it. Love these short little books. You'll see me mention these quite a bit.
Absolutely. And I think the benefit of books like that is, even if you just look at the table of contents and you have a very specific question, they do good to concisely and usually with examples answer that well.
Yeah. You don't need a theological degree to read this.
Oh, yeah. No. And I would recommend another book as well. It's in this is a compilation of 2 or 3 books, but the actual book I'm recommending that it has inside of it is about 88 pages, and it's very large font and is very tiny as well. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is a famous Christian figure of the past in World War II.
Yeah. If you are interested in World War II, Dietrich Bonhoeffer is your guy.
Oh yeah. Super, super interesting. And whether you agree with him or not, it's hard to, you can't deny he loved the Lord and was willing to die for him.
Yep.
But he wrote a book that's 4 chapters long. It's very devotional, called Life Together. And it covers the basic things of what does it mean to live life together as believers, in your own personal life, in immediate community, in family discipleship, so much, in a nice, sweet little package, that I think has benefited me greatly as well.
Yeah.
So those are the two recommendations.
2 books. Don't want to overwhelm you.
Yeah, reading is good. Look at these books as tools, not replacements for your time in the Word. But they help shape us.
Yeah.
They help hold us accountable. Yeah. Might be a good way of putting it.
Yeah. It's something that may take you a couple of weeks to gather information on. Somebody's probably looked at it.
Yeah.
i.e. church membership.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. Any final remarks? Or
thanks for connecting the dots.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on Connect the Dots. All right, we'll see you next time.